The National Museum of Funeral History presents The Final Curtain Never Closes. I'm your host, Genevieve Keeney Vasquez, the president and CEO of the museum. Today we have a fascinating guest with us, and the title of what he is and what he represents is quite a tongue twister, so I'll do my best here. We have a numismatist with us, and if you are listening and have no clue what that word is, it's actually a collector of coins, someone who collects coins and knows the history of the coins. So a numismatic is collecting of coins, the actual act of collecting them. So I want to welcome our guest today who can actually go further into that interesting term of what a numismatist is and what they do and how they relate to our industry, because, coins we know is a currency and we understand it's a way of trade, but it also, believe it or not, has a lot of symbolism in funerary customs. And that's why I brought this special guest aboard today to help us understand the history of the coins and what their tradition means in our industry that goes, back further than you probably thought. So welcome, Larry. Larry Hoefer also happens to be my father, who I'm very proud to have as a guest today on our show. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I remember as a little girl going to the coin shop.
Right.
In this little small town. And fast forward, 45 years?
We opened it up in 1976.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So you got a wealth of knowledge in that mind of yours about coins, the history of coins, what they represent. And you've actually schooled me on some of the traditions that goes into some of our funerary practices that have to do with the coins.
Right. I like to think of not so much as coin collecting as is to history of the coins and the history of why we use the coins all the way back into the, basically you're talking about antiquity.
Wow.
We're going back to some of the earliest coin collectors. The word numismatic was not even in the vocabulary back then. But they were coin collectors, but they were kings. They were rulers. They were emperors. These are the ones who could put back a little bit of what they saw and they liked. So we go back all the way with this.
And when we're saying putting back what they liked and saw, that means like hoarding it or keeping it and not using it to spend on items or trade or wealth.
Right. They would keep these and they would show to their dignitary guests that would come in from all over. And they would show, I've got this much and you don't. So it was also kind of like a match of a competition of exactly.
who can collect the most coins of value, correct?
Who can amass the largest wealth.
Wow, interesting.
And I think if we look back, I think everybody remembers or has seen at one time or another the treasures of King Tut.
Of course, yes.
That was, he amassed all this wealth, but what was he going to do with it after he died?
Ooh, that's the subject we're going to talk about too.
That's the subject we're going to talk about a little later on. But the kings back then, even the lowly servants of the kings, they would be buried with coins. And the reason that they were buried with coins is back then they believed that they needed a coin to pay the ferryman to ferry them across the river Styx. That would carry them into the afterworld.
Oh.
Without that coin in their pocket or in their mouth or on their body somewhere, they could not join in the afterworld. They had to have that coin to pay the ferryman.
Wow, so you even had to pay in death.
Correct.
That's interesting.
That was the taxes of death.
The taxes of death.
Yes.
Wow, speaking of taxes, we are in tax season, and they always say there's two things you can cheat on in life, and that's death and taxes. But I'm here to tell you that you can cheat on your taxes, but you definitely cannot cheat death. And interesting enough, when we talk about death, we're talking about the things that we leave behind. We have a fascinating casket here in the museum, and it's actually lined with real money.
That is correct.
We call it the Money Casket.
That's what it is.
It really is a true draw. People who haven't heard about it when they come to the museum, it's kind of one of those unexpected oddities that's an eye catcher, and they're like, "Wow, money in a casket." I always like to say, this goes to show you that you can take it with you when you die.
You just have part of it.
Part of it. That's it. Yes. So let's talk about that money casket and how it came to be, because it has a fascinating story and journey that went along with it. We received the casket as a display item because the gentleman who owned it wanted to share the uniqueness of this material that was used to showcase the coin encapsulated onto the casket. Taking the story further back, there was a couple gentlemen that were looking for investors into their concept of this resin that would actually encapsulate an item and still allow it to be seen and held for an eternity. And so he took a chance on them and invested in their resin company. And to prove what their product could do, he asked them to line a casket with money. And he would actually take this casket, once it was lined with money, to shows, conventions, which you're very familiar with, right? Because you guys go to a lot of shows and conventions for coin collectors, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I believe he took this with him to these conventions, and he used it as a draw, if you will, to his booth, and he allowed people to get in the casket and take pictures. And that was one of those things that became an item of a notary with him, notoriety. He was Mr. Moneybags. He was the man with the money casket. And so he ended up putting it on display in between shows here at the National Museum of Funeral History for people to also enjoy the beauty of what the casket is. He has unfortunately since passed away, but he has left us his legacy with this amazing money casket, and all real money. And you can attest to that, correct?
Correct. It's all real.
And so you can see it here on display at the National Museum of Funeral History. So yeah, we just, again, wanted to show that you can take some of it with you when you die. You just have to put it into your casket, have it lined, or maybe put it in your pockets when you're just before you're buried. Another exhibit that we have here that we actually can tie coins into funeral practices or preparing the body for a wake, and that's with our Victorian exhibit. So can you tell me a little bit more about how the coins were used during the Victorian time period?
Victorian time period, normally they had a parlor in every house, and that parlor was basically where they laid out the dead person, and there would be visitors would come in. Unfortunately, the eyelids would open.
And let's talk about why the eyelids open, right? The eyelids are one of your smallest muscles in your body, and that tends to be where rigor mortis begins to set in. So as the muscle begins to harden, the eyelids begin to retract and opening up the eyes, which for some people is not what they want to see. They want to see him in a sleeping-like pose.
Right. They wanted to see him in his natural pose, which would be his eyes closed and he's sleeping. Well, the eyes were being opened. So what they would do is they would place a silver dollar or a coin heavy enough to keep those eyelids closed. And that the silver dollar was usually used as a method of keeping those eyes closed and make the person look more natural.
Wow. So were they actually viewed with the coins on their eyes, or prior to them coming out for the wake, were the coins placed on the eye and then removed? Or
no, the coins were left on the eyes. They didn't want that mistake when Uncle Joe comes through, all of a sudden the eyes open. So
well, and also if he had that coin on his eyes, now he has money for passage, correct?
Well, correct. He would have the money for passage. So, but they usually, a lot of times, even in the Victorian era, you'd find somebody slipping a small change into their hand.
Oh, wow. So they continued on that tradition from the earlier times.
Right. That a coin on a headstone has meaning, and a coin on the eyes have meaning. And the coins that were taken with the kings had meaning. If you go back to the Egyptians, when they had to take all this gold and silver, they had to pay their servants. So in order to pay their servants in the afterworld, they would take that money with them. Victorian age, they would slip a little coin into it. just so they would have a little bit of money just in case they needed it.
And then the Vikings too, right? They would add that into their burial site. So I guess this kind of takes that whole concept of buried treasure to the next level. Because I always think buried treasure, you're thinking pirates and the ships and them hiding them in the caves. But in reality, there are treasures buried with our loved ones.
Exactly. And the Egyptians were real good at this. If this person had gold, they buried it with the gold. And even in modern times, the grave robbers in Egypt would just ravage the king's coffins or the king's burial sites. They would ravage these things for the gold and the silver that was in them.
Wow, that's interesting. To know that the grave robbing, had a double meaning. There was the time period where they were grave robbing because they needed bodies for anatomical donation, but going further back, they were grave robbing because they had wealth buried with them.
That is correct.
Interesting.
That is correct. And even today, when they were unearthing the tombs, a lot of the kings of Egypt or the higher up of Egypt, when they unearthed these, the body might still be there, but all of the treasures that were around the body was gone. And the grave robbers would literally tear open the gauze that covered the bodies to get to their jewels that may be around their neck, or the jewels that they encrusted in their fingers and on their toes. They put toe tags on them, which were made out of gold.
Yeah, I remember there was a time when I was young, when I was interested in the funeral industry, and I read something where they were discouraging any jewels to be buried with your loved one, that that the funeral director would take off all the jewelry, anything of value on that body prior to burial. And now, rightfully so, because it took away the grave robbing.
Correct.
Yeah.
It really dampened their enthusiasm about digging up a coffin, because probably nothing going to be there.
Yeah, nowadays and I myself can attest that now we highly discourage any valuables to be buried with any of your loved ones. So traditions have changed over time, most definitely.
Right. One of the traditions that haven't changed is the coins that you hear about it usually on Memorial Day or Veterans Day, of coins that are being placed on the headstones of soldiers.
I've heard of seashells, but coins, that's a new concept. So, yeah.
Well, it's been done for a long, long time, and each and every coin has its particular meaning. The 1 cent coin means that a person visited that gravesite, and he left a penny there for him. The second one is the nickel, which says, I went to boot camp with this guy.
Oh, wow.
He was in my boot camp.
You just gave me goosebumps.
Right. And the 10 cent or the dime that was placed on it means I served with this person. Oh. And the quarter simply means I was there when he died.
Wow.
When he was killed, I was there. So that's the meaning of the coins that are left, which is being discouraged, not completely done away with, but it is being discouraged at a lot of the cemeteries nowadays. They just don't want them left there anymore.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting tradition. And when you think, coins have value, they have a monetary value, and for you to go and take something of value and leave it behind on somebody's headstone is it has a lot of meaning and depth behind it. If you think about it, that you're willing to leave a 25-cent piece or 5-cent piece. And I know today in our day and age, a 1 cent to a 25-cent practically is, maybe half a penny in value with the inflation of our current time period. But if you were to think about that when it first started, maybe World War I?
I think it was after World War I when the tradition started to be putting them on.
That's some significant value to leave on a headstone during those time periods when 25 cents could get you a lot of stuff.
Oh,
yeah. That's interesting. That it just goes to show the significance of the camaraderie that exists amongst our armed forces.
That's correct.
willing to leave the wealth behind to represent the significance and the value they had in their life.
Well, most of they had the soldiers are remembered by other soldiers.
Oh, always.
Always. And this is where that the dime and the quarter comes in, is that I remember this guy.
Yeah, we shall never forget.
That's correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
And I have to say that, we're talking about military cemeteries, and I'm honored to be sitting here with my father today, who is also a veteran. He, the Marine Corps, I, the Army, and I will not hold that against him. Great honor, and he's got an amazing granddaughter also who's serving our country in the Marine Corps as well. So understanding the camaraderie, never ever forgetting our soldiers and the sacrifices they have made for us. And we have a wonderful exhibit here at the National Museum of Inner History talking about Arlington National Cemetery, the Vietnam Wall, and the baggage cart that was used to unload service members who lost their lives on the battlefield when their remains were returned home on trains. So we have a wonderful veterans exhibit here at the National Museum of Funeral History, and I have to say I'm very fascinated by that history. I'm of the newer generation of veterans, and I unfortunately have to say that I didn't know what those coin values represented. So the next time that you're in a veteran cemetery and you see a coin laid on a headstone, you understand the representation, and I hope that you will pass it by and leave it there.
That's correct. Today's modern practice, I guess you might say, is if you see a penny on the ground. It is said that if you see a penny on the ground after a loved one passes, that person is thinking about you.
Oh, I thought it meant that it was my lucky day.
No.
Always say a penny with heads up, you got to pick it up, it's your lucky day. But if it's tails up, to leave it be. That's the tradition I'd always heard. But so you're saying that it's a messessage from my loved one.
It's a message from heaven.
Wow. Pennies from heaven.
Pennies from heaven.
Who would have ever thought?
Everybody's heard of that.
Wow.
It's a penny from heaven.
A penny from heaven. So if you're walking along the street and you happen to see a penny, heads up, tails up, pick it up, because it just might be a message from your loved one who just recently passed away. Wow, that I'm never going to want to spend that penny.
Not supposed to.
I'm going to have to keep that one. But yeah, that's very interesting. Have you had that instance ever happen to you after you've lost a loved one? Have you experienced
really.
it?
I don't pay that close attention to it, I'm afraid.
So I guess you never look down on the ground
Correct,
when you're walking, because I think was beaten into us verbally by the military, because we're never supposed to look down when we're marching forward.
Correct.
You keep your head up.
Yeah.
It is hard to look down after you've been in the military.
Keep it on a swivel.
Exactly, and walk with purpose.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting. So another thing that we wanted to talk about is kind of like where you come in, and I know you've been collecting coins your entire life. But there's different aspects to your hobby, your profession, what it is that you do, and that wealth of knowledge that you have acquired over, 45 years?
Closer to 50,
Yeah.
60.
Keep moving that needle. Shh, can tell my age, Dad. So there's another whole aspect that we hadn't even talked about or addressed, and that's like, so when you're alive, you might want to consider having your coin collection assessed for its value. But most of the time when people are collecting for themselves, they kind of have a general idea of what the value of their collection is based off of that being their hobby, right? So they may not run out and get an appraisal of their collection. However, sometimes you'll find once people pass away and their families are coming in to settle out their estate and go through the items that they have unfortunately had to leave behind, they might come across some, it might just be a really small collection of coins, and it may be a large collection of coins. But what would you say to somebody who who has found a collection of coins, be it a handful of pennies or a jar of pennies, what would you recommend that they do? Take it to the local bank and deposit it, or should they take some steps prior to doing that?
They should take some steps. Knowledge is king.
Ooh.
And knowledge is what you really, really should have. And I always recommend buy the book first.
And what book would that be?
You could buy a coin price book at a grocery store. You can buy a grading book at most all online stores. But you got to learn something about what these coins are all made of. And there's a difference between a collection and an accumulation.
Oh.
I think all of us have that jar that we come home, we got a bunch of, women are terrible at this. That purse weighs 40 pounds. And, 37 pounds of this is coins that they've thrown in the bottom of their purse. And
Sorry.
it's the truth.
Sorry.
You got all this change in your purse, so you throw it in a jar. And the next person throws it in a jar. But that's not a collection. That's an accumulation of coins. A coin collector normally knows what he has. He likes to put it into a book. He likes to study the history of that particular coin or that particular coin collection. He'll know the history of the bison on the back of the Indian nickel. Now, you notice I didn't say buffalo nickel. It's called the Indian head nickel. There is no buffalo in North America. We have an American bison. But the coin collector will know this. And we all hope that one of the people that you're going to be leaving these coins to also know it. And there's going to be one in that family that really has got knowledge of the coins. But you may only find one out of all your relatives that got any interest in the coins. It's a very specialized hobby. So what are you going to do with it? You liquidate it before you die and just put the money into an account so everybody can share it? One of the best ways to do it, I believe, is to get all of the participants and have them pick out one coin that you're going to remember this person by. And that's the coin that you're going to keep. We find that most people will take a silver dollar from the 1800s, and they will want that because it's big, it's shiny, it's bright. They'll leave that lonely 1 cent piece sitting on the table because it's dull, there's no weight to it, it's a copper-looking thing, there's no shininess to it. So you got to remember that 1 cent might be a 1909 SVDB worth $1,000, where the silver dollar that you picked up may be a 1808 or 1908, and it's worth nothing.
Oh, wait, it's worth $1, right?
It's got to be worth $1, and it's silver. So if it's a 1921 Morgan dollar, it's worth silver, unless it's in really good condition.
So that means it could be worth more than $1?
Absolutely. Always, all the silver dollars, quote unquote, silver dollars, are worth the price of silver. And each and every silver dollar contains 0.7734 ounces of silver. So that's 3/4 of an ounce of silver. Silver is priced at $23 an ounce, so you can figure it out. It's 3/4 of an ounce. So what you're going to do is you're going to gather together the people that you want to give these to and say, pick out a coin and remember me by it. Then liquidate the rest. Or you can take and sit down with all of the people after your death, and they can sit down with an appraiser, and they can appraise it, and they'll say, okay, this is what the collection is worth. I'll give you X amount of dollars for it, and you split up the dollars.
Now, are you an appraiser?
Yes.
You're an appraiser. So you actually have experience in helping families or you have experience in helping collectors liquidate their collection prior to their death, or you've helped families who have come across this collection of coins or accumulation of coins to help them understand what's its value?
That's correct. Now, unfortunately, you get into a mess where Dad said I could have this. No, Dad didn't say you could have that. Dad said I could have this. Well, that's because Dad talked to each individual person at a different time. And this person showed an interest in this one particular coin. He said, hey, you can have it. After I'm gone, you can have it. Well, you also told this other person that they could have it. So all of a sudden, we got a family argument going on at the table. And at that point, the appraiser usually says, work it out. When you get it worked out, call me.
Yeah, I can tell you that unfortunately, when a death happens, there's so many emotions that go on, and when you're talking about having to divide up somebody's personal property that's very representative of who they are, you tend to unfortunately deal with a lot of family dynamics that can lead to discord and arguments and stuff along the way. So this is where we always say that it's very important to plan ahead when you can. And don't put off tomorrow what needs to be done today. And having a will is very important, because if I would have had a will, I could have specifically said Johnny gets this coin and could have avoided that whole argument, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
You could have the will, and you can write in that will, this person is going to get all of the dimes. This person will get half of the silver dollars. The other silver dollars were divided up evenly between all the parties. And you didn't say anything about the dates or the values or anything like that. All you said was going to be divided. And then let each and every person make up their own mind on what they want to do with their share. But I have seen so many arguments over this. A year and a half ago, I just saw one, exactly the same thing. That Dad said I could have these two. Well, Dad didn't say you could have them. He said that Johnny could have them.
Yeah.
So this happens all the time.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate. So hopefully, for anyone who's listening, and you might have a coin collector in your family, or someone who accumulates the coins, and I think it's very, very important that not only do we have our funeral plans, thought through, but all of the stuff that we leave behind, because even though earlier in the show we did say you can take it with you, if you do not have it lined into your casket with a fancy resin, most likely all of your money is going to be left behind to your loved ones, and understanding the value of that money is very important, because it may be worth more than you think, and it may just be face value, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
You never know until you buy the book and study it.
Buy the book.
And as the person gets older, normally they have enough time to actually go through this. If they have the interest in the coins, they will have the interest in to go buy the book, go through it, sit down with your daughters and your sons, and hey, this coin is worth this much money if it's kept in a good condition, and it's got to be kept in good condition. And unfortunately, Houston has got a habit of being very, very humid. Humidity is a deterrent for the coins. I mean, it will ruin a coin so quick. The glue on the side of the boxes that the coin might come into will completely come apart because of the humidity that we have. So what you want to do is buy small humidity packages and put them in your safe. And that way, the help to keep some of the humidity off of these coins, because the humidity.
Now, when you say deteriorate the coin, does it actually burr holes in the coin, or what happens to the coin?
But it'll cause a dull finish to it.
Okay.
When the coin comes off of the mint, it has got a very, very shiny surface to a silver coin. Once the humidity starts hitting it, the surface dulls real bad.
Now, are these common coins that we see that have been exchanged by hands, or are these more coins that have never seen or been touched by human hands?
These are the coins that's never been touched. They come out of the mint and put into a sealed envelope or sealed case. And these coins are basically supposed to be kept in a humidity regulated area. And there's no way to regulate the humidity here.
So as you can see here, we have two drastic subject matters. You have the coin collector whose coins might be in very nice cases, never touched by human hands. And then you have the accumulator who probably has coins that have traveled all around the world and touched by thousands of hands, but yet still might have some value to them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So
still may have a good amount of value to them.
and that's the interesting part is figuring out where is that diamond in the rough, right?
Exactly. And you used to be when we did a lot of money exchanging. We don't do that so much anymore with credit cards, but the money used to change hands, and you always used to say, look at your change. Look at your change. You never know what you're going to find. And about the only place today that we can say, look at your change, is they got these little change machines that you see at grocery stores where you can dump in your accumulation, and they'll give you a voucher to take to the counter for your money. Well, unfortunately, these machines do not accept silver coins. The machine will kick it out and put it into the reject area. So there's still, check your coins.
Check your coins. It might be actual silver that it's made with. That's interesting. And, we're sitting here, we're talking about coins, the significance of the coins. But I have to say, let's address that elephant in the room in our current time in period that we are in 2024. There is this huge talk about getting rid of the dollar, getting rid of the coin. And with that, we're getting rid of a lot of our historical traditions that they represent. What is your take on this whole going digital and getting rid of the dollar?
I don't think it will ever work because there's still a portion of our society that cannot go digital. There's a portion of our society that can't have a credit card. They don't know how to use it. They know how to abuse it, but they have a hard time using it.
Very well said.
There's going to be a place for coins, just like there was in the ancient Egyptian times. There's going to be a place for coins in 100 years from now. It's always been that way. And I believe that it's always going to be that way because of that portion of our society that cannot handle it.
And that's interesting to know, yes, because I remember back in the day, you had to have a form of credit to be able to obtain a credit card. And now they're trying to say, well, everyone needs to have a credit card in order to pay. But if you aren't able to obtain a credit card for whatever reason that be, you're still going to need to use the dollar. I'm seeing signs. I went to a restaurant a couple weeks ago, and it said, we no longer accept cash. And it was like a gut punch. I was like, wow, this is real. And then in the back of my mind, I was wondering how long that will last. Will they decrease their business because they no longer accept cash? Because now they have weeded themselves out to a specific population now. Because if you don't have cash, you can't be served. It's almost discriminatory.
It is because of the fact that they're saying if you're not qualified for a credit card, you're not qualified to eat at our establishment.
Yeah, that's a huge
exactly
message.
What they're saying. So I don't think the cash will ever go completely out. I can understand some of the restaurants or gas stations, things like that won't accept cash because they get robbed too often.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So do you think that the movement towards less cash was perhaps maybe a take on trying to decrease, people going in and robbing the stores? I mean, if you think about it, we stopped burying people with their jewels to curtail grave robbing.
That's correct.
Do you think having cash on hand at its individual establishments is a way of decreasing armed robbery?
It's a way they would like to decrease the robbery. Obviously, if they'll come out with a way to come in there and steal the credit cards. So,
yeah, if there's a will, there's a way. I mean, sometimes I wonder if people had that much amazing knowledge and time to come up with being corrupt, that they truly would have the ability to take that intelligence and apply it to something greater and for the greater good of mankind, rather than beating up mankind or pulling mankind down.
Correct.
Yeah.
The like I said, it's always been there. The Egyptians go back as far as caveman using wampum or using shells or something like this to trade with. That was their money. The Indians used wampum, which was a form of money. They traded a skin for a tomahawk. They had a good napper, which is a person who makes arrowheads in one tribe, and another tribe might have an excellent hunter. And he had all the skin that he needed, so he would trade a wampum. They would trade back and forth.
So, in your working knowledge, when do you think the actual coin, the physicality of a coin came to be?
It had to be way, way back. I mean, we got coins that go back to 20 BC.
Wow.
The Byzantine Empire used a lot of coins. They were very, very strong on coins. All the Roman empires, they had their own coins. Every Roman emperor had his own coins. And when the Roman emperor changed, so did the coins.
And we see that even today. Our presidents of the United States are on the coins. Queen Elizabeth has been minted on all her coins. And now I guess now they have to come out with some coins with King Charles on them.
Correct.
And so
now, there's a big difference between, remember, we wanted to get away from the British completely and the British monetary system. We wanted nothing to do with them, guys. This goes back to 1773, when the shilling was still used in Americas. 1776, we declared our independence, and we came out with what was called continental currency. Then, like you said, the British used their reigning ruler on their coins. The United States, on the other hand, came out and said, we will not put a living person on our coins. There has never been, and there never will be, a living president on your coins.
wow, that's a fact I didn't know.
Yes.
About how long after the passing of a president do you think does it take for them to become?
The quickest one we ever saw was Robert Kennedy. Got assassinated in 1963. In 1964, they come out with the Kennedy $50 to honor him. That was the quickest we've ever seen the government work. The government don't work that quick. But they did come out with that honor of Kennedy in 1964 when he was assassinated in 1963.
Wow.
So that was quick.
Yeah, well, if you think about the denominations of coins and who is already occupying that coin, do you see any changes happening in the future of the coins and who's being represented on them?
There will be a change. The Mint is just putting out way, way too many of the coins right now. We just got the presidential series. Fortunately, no new presidents have died, so we don't have a coin for a president to come out. So then they started honoring the women on coins, the women on the dollars. They came out with the dollars with the innovations. And they just keep coming up with ideas to try to push these coins out of the mint.
And it's interesting that we're coming up with ideas to push the coins out of the mint, but on the other hand, they're wanting to squash the dollar and go to everything on a credit card. So it's almost like a oxymoron or the clashing of the tides here that we have going on. So I find it fascinating that we're still looking for notoriety to be placed on coins or finding a way to capture historical individuals who are important to the shaping or the innovation of our country, but yet we're trying to do away with that. Do you think then that will increase coin collectors in a whole?
I think it will increase a portion of the collecting, but I believe strongly that the actual collector who can afford it will continue to collect the older stuff.
The older stuff, interesting.
I would like to see the new collector get into it to collect the coin for the pure enjoyment of collecting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And
well, I have to say, I think coin collecting is in the DNA. What do you think?
Yes, it is.
And the reason why I speak to this is because I went off young in my life. I went off into the military and, got to see different parts of the world. And when I came back from the military, my tours of duty and serving 12 years in the Army and coming back home and being close to my father again, I realized, but didn't know that I was doing this. I came home with collections of coins. And I looked at my father and I said, I have to be your daughter. I said, because I have so many coins that I have collected over my travels in the Army. And also I had a large acquirement of coins that I would just put into a jar. And I would never spend them, even though they were money. I would just wait for my paycheck to come in and keep adding to my accumulation. But yes, I came home and I had tons of coins. And I was like, Dad, I have a lot of coins. Tell me what they're worth. Help me out here. But interesting enough, I had some coins that I didn't even know were valuable. But I did realize that I was truly your daughter because I had a whole lot of coins.
Yes, but those coins had a meaning to them, which is very, very important in collecting coins. They have no meaning to them. They're just going to be a piece of metal sitting on a shelf, gathering dust.
That is true. They had memories.
If you have a memory of that particular coin, it's a memory. It's something sitting there. It's no different than a little child comes to a coin show and buys a little an Indian head nickel, takes it home and puts it on the shelf. He has purchased that nickel and he puts it on the shelf and it's going to gather dust. He takes that same nickel and his mom and dad sits down and teaches him, why is that called a buffalo nickel when it's a bison? Who is that Indian representing on that coin? If the child starts studying that coin, now when he looks up on that shelf, he's got a piece of history sitting on that shelf. It's not just that nickel up there gathering dust anymore, but it's a history of the United States.
Wow, very well said. So coins have a lot more value, I think, educationally than their numerical value on the face of them.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us and listening to this amazing podcast of hopefully a lot of stuff you didn't know about coins, the history of the coins, and the fact that we got to peek inside this numismatist's mind and the amazing knowledge that he carries around with him, not only on the history of the coins, but what a coin is actually worth to each of us monetarily and or emotionally.
Correct.
So, well, Larry, thank you again for joining us. Your knowledge is impeccable. It reached depths that I probably would never be able to obtain. You have, 60 years of history on me in that knowledge, and I can only hope to gain an ounce of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on this podcast, and I hope that you will share this episode and our future episodes with family and friends. We look forward to any feedback you have to offer by giving us a review on Apple or Spotify, and we hope that you will join us for a virtual tour at www.nmfh.org. And always remember, any day above ground is a good one.